So, this is the story of Brecca versus Beowulf in the swimming match. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Alright, here we go. Once upon a time, long, long ago, the people of Denmark lived in peace, eating and drinking in their huge mead hall. They had feasts every night. Life was filled with joy and laughter, until the fear of a monster came amongst them. A monster named Grendel placed fear in the Danes. Everybody was scared. But one person could defeat him, Beowulf. All of the men in Denmark were so happy to receive a warrior that could slash him down and fight the monster. All of the nation's men were happy, except for one, Unferth. He was a little mean old man, and one day he challenged Beowulf's worthiness by saying, "Liar, liar, pants on fire! You lost to Brecca when time was dire. You couldn't swim, you only sank. A loser in Denmark deserves no rank." Without hesitation, Unferth went on to tell his story of what happened all those years ago. Several years ago, our dear lord and hero Beowulf was said to be obsessed with himself and his reputation. He had so much vanity, and he was brave but daring, and he challenged his childhood friend Brecca to a swimming match of the century. They started out on the beach with a beautiful starting line under the glorious sun, and with the sound of conch horn, they began running towards the ocean, swimming as fast as they could. They swam and swam for 7 days and nights without stopping, not once. But their arms got tired, but they knew they must outlast each other. They faced huge raging storms with thunder and lightning. And then finally, they got split apart. They didn't know who was alive and who was dead, but Brecca took this chance to swim ashore really, really fast and claim the victory. Beowulf was seen to have died, and Brecca instead won all the riches in the land. After this story, though, everybody was confused. They couldn't understand how Brecca was seen to have won when Beowulf is truly the hero and standing in the mead hall. So the real story goes like this. Beowulf stood up in the mead hall and said, "This is what really happened. Several years ago, it's right, I was childish and very vain, but Brecca and I, we always fought. We ran to see who was the fastest, and we lifted weights to see who was the strongest, but he always competed knowing that I would win. But this was the biggest competition we ever took part in. So we set out towards the ocean. Like Unferth said, one day we gathered on the beach, but what he forgot to mention is we were armed with a sword, the heaviest of metals though. It was fine silver, and it weighed us down, truly testing our strength in the water. Like he said, we heard the conch horn, and we ran towards the water, and we plunged, and we tried our hardest to swim and swim. Then the storms raged on, and the wind, and the lightning, they tore us apart. But he forgot to mention all of the monsters that were swimming beneath our feet. One day, I was swimming, and I didn't know where anybody was, and then out of nowhere, a huge, giant, 8-legged monster came out of nowhere and started pulling me down to the bottom of the ocean floor, and I strangled to get out, and I tried, but he held me down, and I had no more breath left, and out of nowhere, I remembered I had a sword, and I pulled it up, and I slashed down, and I cut off all of its legs, and I swam to the top, and I gasped for air, but it had 7 legs still, so it took me again, and down it pulled, and I slayed him, and I cut up all his legs, cutting and hacking at him, until finally I defeated that one monster. Night after night, I was fighting and fighting, hopefully that I would just get my life and finally be able to swim back to shore. And I did. Eventually, on the 9th day, all of the bodies floated to the top of the water. I had killed all the monsters in the sea and made it easier and safer for the sailors to travel the ocean. I took this opportunity to swim ashore, but I was so weak I could barely make it. I had to let go of my sword in the ocean, and I let my body go loose and just float until finally I landed onto the land and the beach of Finland. I was so tired, but I walked and I walked to make it back to my men so I could tell them that I was victorious. After Beowulf finished his story, everybody knew that he was the stronger man. He was able to defeat Grendel. Unferth was left to cry in the corner, and everybody cheered Beowulf's name. Beowulf! 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 And then everybody cheered and gave him candy because they had a feast because he was so strong.